Hello, and welcome to part 2 of my series of videos breaking down and analyzing The Mandalorian. No need to waste time, so if you haven't seen part 1 where I break down episodes 1 through 3, make sure you go check it out first, and then we can get right on with 4, 5, and 6. We begin episode 4 with a shot of some tribal people fishing for alien krill, and right off the bat we get some strange world building. These people have access to plenty of droids and floating barges and other technology, but they use wicker baskets to catch their shrimp? It's so weird that they made this choice because I could very easily understand a society in Star Wars that doesn't have access to all this tech. Or like an Amish society that just wants to live simpler lives, but they do have some tech, so they could probably make their lives easier by using some of it for their farming. We then get a nice shot showing the people throughout the village, and this set design is really nice. These filmmakers have all done a very good job of making very believable and immersive scenes. We then get a sharp cut from this serene setting to tension as people are yelling to get out, and we see a group of baddies coming out of the woods to raid and pillage this town. We get shots of the mother holding her child under the basket on top of the water, ramping up the tension. After the raid is over, all the bad guys leave, and as the leader is walking away, the mother flips the basket off her head. And my immediate thought was that she may need to wait a little longer. Hopefully she knows all the bad guys are gone, because that could have been awkward. Now we get a scene of Mando flying his ship, with Baby Yoda being even more adorable, flipping switches on the ship. The writers obviously knew how adorable Baby Yoda was, given that they milk it for all it's worth, but damn, I don't even care. They totally struck gold with this little shit. Mando looks at his ship's scanner and he says that the planet they're arriving at has no starport, no industrial centers, and no population density. This means it's perfect for them. This is good. Mando is making a plan that actually makes sense. He needs to hide, so he's looking for a planet that doesn't have much traffic on it. He also says nobody's going to find them here, so I guess he's unaware of how these trackers work as well. After they land on the planet, Mando makes a big deal to Baby Yoda that he needs to stay on the ship. This obviously means that Baby Yoda is coming with him. Mando walks Baby Yoda through a forest and then into a cantina, and it's really bizarre how little he cares about Baby Yoda's safety in these scenes. He doesn't carry him or even hold his hand. He walks at full speed while this little infant fails to keep up with him. Like every shot we get, we see Baby Yoda falling behind, and Mando doesn't care at all. And we see a cat that scares Baby Yoda, and it could have easily just eaten him right there. But obviously the whole thing with Mando is that he wants to take care of Baby Yoda. I mean, he essentially gave up his whole life to protect him. So what is he doing right now? Inside the bar, Mando notices our new recurring character, Cara Dune, the ex-rebellion shock trooper. Mando orders some soup from the diner lady and asks about Cara. Then after she walks away, Cara is missing, so Mando stands up to go find her. He then throws diner lady some money and tells her to keep an eye on the kid. And this just seems so cavalier with the safety of Baby Yoda. He knows people are looking for this very valuable target, and he has no idea who's on this planet. If he really wants to keep Yoda safe, why does he keep leaving him alone? Mando then walks outside to look for Cara, and we see another ability for his suit. He can now track recent footprints through his thermal vision, I guess. No, I'm no scientist, but I really don't think you pass that much body heat through your boots. But aside from that, wouldn't it have been cooler if he was able to just track these footprints on his own, showing that he is more skilled as a person rather than just having a bunch of gadgets for his suit? Maybe that's just me, though. We see the footsteps stop, and Cara pops out to attack Mando. After a swift kick to his chest, she throws a full haymaker right across his helmet. And I have to ask, does that not fucking hurt? This is like the most protective metal we've ever seen in Star Wars, and she just throws wild punches at it? But alright, maybe she has special gloves that protect her hands since she's clearly a brawler, so that would make sense. And oh no, she punches the wood behind him and yells in pain. Alright, so that argument is immediately tossed out. At the end of the fight, after they rough each other up a little bit, it finishes with them both on the ground pointing their blasters at each other. Well, I mean, Mando's blaster is pointed directly at her face, while hers is pointed at his blaster-proof helmet. So if he was trying to kill her, I think he has the advantage here. And before you say that he wasn't trying to kill her and he just wanted to talk to her, he tries to use his flamethrower against her, so I'm fairly certain that's what he was going for. Now we get some of Cara's history. She talks about how she helped mop up the galaxy of ex-Imperial warlords after the Battle of Endor. She says that after all the Imperials were gone, the rebel army became peacekeepers, protecting delegates and suppressing riots, implying she didn't enjoy this change. And I gotta say, I love this. This is a good way to do characterization. We get insight into her attitude about government and politics, and we find out that she's a fighter, but at the same time they're giving us some of the world building we missed out on in the sequel trilogy. But She then says that she was here first, so that they have to leave. Mando turns to Baby Yoda and says it looks like this planet is taken, and I'm really thinking that the writers have just completely forgotten how big a planet is. Maybe I'm missing something, but this can't be the only diner on this world. Can he not just take his spaceship and fly to the other side of the planet? I mean, come on, man. We then get a really funny scene. Mando is now at his ship doing some maintenance work in the middle of the night, and out from the forest come these two people on a floating barge. They call out to Mando and he has no reaction at all. This guy, who's shown a few times how on edge he always is, even in this very same episode, he reacts strongly to a child who makes the mistake of sneaking up on him from behind. But when these fully grown men pop out of the forest in the middle of the night, he doesn't even look at them? What are you doing, Mando? So the tribe people ask Mando for his help with the raiders, and he declines because he needs to get off the planet. And then they say something about living in the middle of nowhere, and this makes Mando change his mind. So I guess he is cool with just living somewhere else on the planet. Alright, he invites Kara to come with him, and I'm kind of confused how he even found her in the first place. But she does have the reaction to instantly pull her blaster when he throws the credits at her, unlike Mando. Now they make it to the village, and all the people are celebrating the arrival of Mando and Kara. Mando now meets the mother that we saw earlier in the episode, and she's setting up the accommodations for Mando's stay. And here's where we get the scene where Mando freaks out at a child sneaking up on him. In contrast to the last scene and the scene in episode 1 where he gets attacked by the blurg, he's very inconsistent about his reactions and abilities. Later, the mother brings Mando some food and starts a conversation with him. The daughter runs in and asks him if she and the other kids can play with Baby Yoda, and Mando gets very hesitant. Now I'm very confused, because when he shows up on this planet, he lets Baby Yoda walk freely and unguarded through a forest and busy diner with cats large enough to eat him. But now he's hesitant to let him go play with some little kids? It's just so strange. But the mother tells him that it'll be fine and gets Mando to relax. She says she brought him some food because she noticed that he didn't eat while they were outside. She then asks when the last time he took off his helmet was, and he responds with yesterday. So does he sleep with his helmet on? Because that sounds horribly uncomfortable. I guess you can't be certain whether or not someone is going to see you while you're sleeping, but damn. I really hope there are some good Mandalorian chiropractors. She then asks when was the last time in front of someone else, and he says that he wasn't much older than they were, while pointing at the children outside. He says he's glad he was brought in by the Mandalorians, because his parents were killed and they took care of him. But fucking then, he takes his food to the window and pulls off his helmet to start eating. Are you kidding me, man? You just told us that you haven't been seen without your helmet on since you were a child. And then moments later, you take off your helmet in full view of the window. And I swear it's not even possible that one of these kids outside don't see him. In the shot we're watching right now, the lady he was just talking to is facing the window. All she has to do is glance up and his streak is over. This is baffling to me. Why even do this? Now Mando and Kara are scouting around the village, and Mando uses his footprint vision to determine that 15 to 20 people came through here earlier, and they notice that something large must have come through to shear off the tree branches. Then they see a big old footprint from an ATST. They comment on it, and Kara says this is more than she signed up for. I guess it makes sense that the tribe people wouldn't tell them exactly what they're up against in order to get them out here in the first place. We then get a pretty comedic line where it cuts back to them in the village, and he just deadpan says, "Bad news, you can't live here anymore." So a villager says, "We hired you have to help," even though he's the one that left out the fact that the raiders had an ATST. But they then say that seeding these pawns takes generations, and I mean, this is fine, but it's so obvious that this is just a convenient way to say we have to fight for this ground. There's no way they can relocate. But this was in response to Kara saying that this is a big planet, even though she's the one that told Mando he has to leave because the planet isn't big enough for 2 wanted people. Putting that aside though, the guy says they can all learn to fight and do it together. Now they discuss their battle plan with the villagers, and Kara says that there's nothing on the planet that can harm the legs of the ATST. But she knows that Mando's ship is with him, right? Because we later see that his ship has guns that can destroy other ships. So do these ATSTs have stronger armor than those ships? And now that I've brought it up, that seems like a way better plan than what they came up with. They could just hide his ship in the village, and then when the raiders show up, he could just fly up in the air and rain fire on them. I know this would completely change the episode, but this is where creativity and talent come in. You can have this ship involved and still get the same points across that you wanted with the episode. You just have to be creative enough to come up with ways around it. However, we get no mention of his ship throughout the episode, but the plan they came up with is to dig one of these ponds extremely deep and then funnel the ATST into it so when it falls in, it drowns and gets destroyed. So now they're teaching them how to fight with sharpened sticks. I mean, whatever. But like, he didn't have any pointed rocks you could just tie to the end of them. And we see a guy using the spear from the wrong end. Kara flips it around and gives it back to him. I know this is so insignificant to the point where it really doesn't matter, but it reminds me of the Long Night episode of Game of Thrones where Arya hands Sansa a dagger and she just says, I don't know how to use it. It's just so dumb that it stands out like a sore thumb. But this whole plan seems so silly. He's handing out guns to people with absolutely no experience with them. These are people who don't even know which way to hold a spear, and they're supposed to take on these raiders. It kind of feels like they're just walking these people into their deaths. Now Mando has a conversation with the mother, saying that they're going to go draw the raiders out of their camp, and that they need to be ready now. We don't really know how much time has passed since they started training, but when they start, it seems like morning, and as the montage goes on, it seems to get darker and darker. Then when they decide it's time to enact their plan, it's practically sundown. So it feels like the show is trying to say this all happened in one day, and if they want us to believe they got all of this ready and fully trained the villagers in a single day, then that's insane. But I wouldn't necessarily count this against the show, because it could easily be said that this takes place over a few weeks or something, but some indication of that would be nice. Kara and Mando now come up on the raider encampment and assassinate some randos and move on. They then move into a tent with some tanks of liquid, and they both put away their blasters. Why? I have no idea, but it seems like you would want to keep your blaster out just in case anyone decides to walk in on them. Mando places an explosive charge inside the room, and it beeps for way longer than the last one he used. I assume this is so they can get far enough away before the explosion goes off, but why do they think the raiders would assume it was the villagers that blew up their camp? Also, they don't immediately try to get away after they plant the bomb. They kind of just hang out for a little bit until people actually do come in. And they refuse to use their blasters so we can get this extended fight scene between these guys. And if you think they didn't use their blasters to remain stealthy, well, they immediately get found out by a whole bunch of people, so I doubt that's what they were going for. I mean, tons of people start piling into this tent, and not only do none of them have guns, but Kara and Mando decide to not use the guns we do know they have. This makes it pretty clear the writers wanted to have a nice fight scene where they have to use hand-to-hand, but they make our characters look dumb again in order to do it. Along with this being dumb, if they could sneak around the camp this easily, why would they not look around for the ATST to at least try to disable it? Now some people who actually have guns come in, and our heroes have to find a way out. And miraculously, they get out just in time for the bomb to go off. So it's lucky those guys came in when they did, because they really weren't showing any desire to leave before then. We then get a cool shot of the ATST rising up from behind the trees, and it spots them so they decide to run. I don't know why it doesn't immediately start firing at them, but at least it does eventually. They then make it back to the camp and the walker comes out of the woods, and I will definitely say that the ATST coming through the forest with its red eyes looks incredibly intimidating, and the CGI is of course nailed again here. Mando shouts just a few more steps, and almost as if it heard him, right before it hits the pond it steps back. It then turns on its flashlight to get a better look at the village people, and these guys are absolutely awful at getting down. Pretty much all of them wait until they're in the light to get down, and then it gets to the guys with the spears and they just sit there. Like, this thing has them in full view and they don't try to take cover at all. So of course the ATST fires at them and it goes right over their heads? Come on, they're standing totally still in full view of the flashlight and you miss by that much? And after that, Kara yells to them to hold their positions. Like, I'm sorry, but I'm pretty sure their position is compromised. Just because the thing can't fucking aim doesn't mean it won't completely obliterate them eventually. Luckily for them, the ATST decides to turn away from them, and all the raiders come running out of the forest. Why? They have no way to harm the ATST unless it steps forward. That thing could literally just sit there and shoot them until they're all destroyed. Everyone in this show is just so dumb. So now we have a shootout between the villagers and the raiders, and Mando and Kara discuss trying to find a new way to get the ATST to step forward. Kara says new plan and asks for Mando's rifle. She takes it and then runs forward into the ATST, and it shoots at her. And the blaster bolt that we just saw blow up a whole hut like 10 seconds ago lands right next to her and does nothing. So she jumps into the pond right in front of it. The ATST only fires at her when she's behind cover, and these blaster bolts are doing so little compared to what they were doing earlier. Kara keeps trying to shoot the ATST to goad it into stepping forward, and this just keeps extending this fight scene. Eventually, Kara gets a shot into the window of the ATST, making it drunk for some reason and getting it to fall in. And if this was the plan, couldn't Mando have just shot it from where he was? But this kind of jostles it around and we get this shot where we can plainly see inside of the cockpit. And you can see there's no one inside driving this thing. So is this thing AI controlled? If it is, why does it need a flashlight? Why is its aim so bad? And why on earth does it need windows? This is the kind of thing that really doesn't matter at all until it affects the plot. And this does affect it in a very major way. If this thing didn't have any windows, this whole scene would not be possible. This is likely an editing or a CGI error rather than a writing one, but I honestly don't think I would be pointing it out at all if it didn't affect the plot of the episode this much. Now all the baddies run off, and the fight ends, and we get a shot of the ATST still burning. Again, I'm no scientist, but I'm pretty sure that metal doesn't burn very well. Maybe it was a gas-powered ATST. Now we get some levity with another adorable scene of Baby Yoda trying to eat a frog, and of course he's just perfect. Now the mother tells Mando that Baby Yoda fits right in, and Kara asks him what happens if he takes off his helmet, and he just says that he can never put it on again because that's the way. Kara then tells him that he can take off his helmet and settle down with the mother and raise the kid with her. And I'm sorry, was there any romance between them at all? Because I don't think they showed any, but now we're just being told that they have a thing. And this is a problem that I feel plagues this show. With how short these episodes are, everything feels so rushed. They don't have time to show us this romance, they just have to outright say that it's happened. He then tells her that they raised a lot of hell, and they will likely have to move on to a different planet before they get found. Mando says that he's going to leave Baby Yoda here when he moves on. Even though we totally know that this show is not going to drop this gold mine this early on. I still like the dialogue because it shows us that Mando cares enough about Baby Yoda to leave him behind so he can have a better life. Mando now has a conversation with the mother, telling her that he's going to leave Baby Yoda here with her, and she asks him to stay. He says it would be nice to stay, and she goes to remove his helmet because she's apparently in love with him. And we get that scene that I discussed earlier of the bounty hunter that tracked them all the way out to the middle of nowhere with his fob. He moves his scope onto Baby Yoda, and this highlights an issue with Mando's plan. The bounty was made for Baby Yoda, so if he leaves, that doesn't solve the problem. The bounty hunters would still be tracking him here, so he would be less safe without Mando. We then hear a gunshot go off to make us believe that the bounty hunter had just shot Baby Yoda, but who would have thought? It was a fake out. Kara happened to shoot this guy just in time. What the hell? Last we saw her, she was just chilling on the front porch, but luckily she had the random urge to go take a stroll around the woods, and it just so happened to be in the exact location that the bounty hunter was in, and she was able to shoot him literal moments before he pulled the trigger. Alright, I guess it's just tradition now that every episode ends with some insane level of Deus Ex Machina. So well written, I love it. So Mando decides he needs to move on, and he takes Baby Yoda with him. So he rides away on his floating barge, and it cuts to black, and that ends episode 4. Whew, that was something. This episode comes off as an unmitigated disaster. Every decision made by these characters, outside of 1 or 2, seemed genuinely stupid. This is the episode where my investment took a serious nosedive. This episode just feels so pointless. It doesn't further the plot, and I just don't care at all about what's happening here. The only characters we know at the start of this episode are Mando and Baby Yoda, and it's pretty easy to assume that Mando isn't going to die halfway through the first season of a show called The Mandalorian, so I just don't have any sense of stakes or investment for anyone else. I just feel like they did a horrendous job of making me care about any characters that could actually be in danger. But it's okay, episode 4 is over now, so let's move on to episode 5. Episode 5 begins with a dogfight in space that looks really cool, but there's no investment here at all. We have no idea what's going on, who this guy is, or why he's here. This is just a cold open to get the plot of the episode going. So whatever. I guess it doesn't really matter, but Mando's ship got damaged in the fight, so he's got to land to get it repaired. And the planet he lands on is Tatooine. Of course it's Tatooine. When Mando lands, he places a sleeping Baby Yoda in a small compartment on the ship and walks off. Make sure you remember this, because it's going to come back up in a few moments. But for now, a few prequel-era repair droids come up to get ready to repair his ship, and Mando shoots at them. And I'm just wondering how far his droidism goes, because I fully understand with his history why he would trust assassin droids or droids that drive him around. But these are mechanic droids. What exactly are they going to do other than just repair his ship? I guess this is consistent with his character. I would just like to know how far it goes. So the main mechanic comes out to inspect his ship and says that the repair is going to cost him more than he has on him. Mando tells her that he's going to get her the money, and he leaves her to fix the ship. It then cuts back to the mechanic playing poker with her droids, which is just, okay, whatever. But after a few moments, Baby Yoda comes waddling out of the ship, because if you remember, Mando just left him there, all alone. And since he's seriously not concerned at all for his safety, he decided to not tell the mechanic or anyone at all to take care of him. He just left him on the ship alone, hoping he wouldn't wake up and try to get out. Seriously, Mando, get your act together because you are a terrible father, or at least a terribly inconsistent father. Luckily for Mando, this mechanic is actually a good person who ends up taking care of Baby Yoda. Now it cuts to Mando walking into the most
wretched hive of scum and villainy.
He then tells the droid that's working the bar that he's looking for some work, but it tells him the bounty guild, as in singular, no longer operates from Tatooine. So is it saying there's only one bounty hunters guild in the whole galaxy? Is Grief the boss of every single bounty hunter? And it all operates out of one bar on Navarro? Such a strange line that could be fixed so easily. All they would have to do is change the line to, unfortunately, no bounty guilds currently operate on Tatooine. Boom. Fixed. Easy enough. A guy overhearing the conversation calls out to Mando, saying that he might have some work for him. And I know this is subjective, but you guys have no idea how angry it makes me seeing this absolute cringe lord sitting in the seat where we meet the most charismatic character that we've ever had. It drives me nuts. But aside from that, he says his name is Toro and tells Mando to sit down. He tells him he's got a bounty on an assassin for them to capture. He tells Mando he's tracked her this far using a fob, and that it seems like she's heading out into the desert. Still don't know how these things work, but okay. But Mando tells him good luck with that, and he gets up to leave. But Toro says, I thought you needed work, which, yeah, doesn't he? But he says that this assassin is an elite mercenary who made her name killing for all the top syndicates. Toro then says this is his first job, so Mando can keep all the money. He just needs the job to get into the guild. And what? Why on earth would the guild give jobs this difficult to literal rookies? How do they get new people in the guild if they send their new recruits on seemingly impossible jobs? Just a little silly, I suppose. This makes Mando change his mind though, so he tells him to meet him at the hangar. So Mando asks him for the fob and Toro just smashes it. He says, don't worry, got it all memorized. What the hell? That can't be how this works. It's just a blinking light. How do you memorize that? What if she moves? You literally just destroyed your only surefire way of finding this person. This is seriously ridiculous. So now Mando makes it back to his ship and he finds that Baby Yoda is missing and he freaks out. I really don't understand what he expected. Was Baby Yoda just supposed to sit in that thing for multiple days while he's out on this mission? And this lady is working on his ship. How was she supposed to not find him? This is seriously strange and just makes Mando look even dumber. She tells him, you can't just leave a child alone like that, which, yeah, obviously. She then says he has a lot to learn about raising a young one, which makes sense. I didn't expect him to be a perfect parent, but do you really need to tell someone you can't leave a baby completely unattended for days at a time? So the lady offers to take care of Baby Yoda, and Mando and Toro ride off on their speeders. They come to a stop because of some Tusken Raiders off in the distance, and Toro says he doesn't care who they are as long as they keep their distance. And Mando says, why don't you tell them yourself? The camera pans around and whoa, wouldn't you know it? Some Tusken Raiders just materialized from nowhere. Mando then starts negotiating with the Raiders using sign language, and this makes sense to me, but I just wonder where this level-headedness was when he ran into the Jawas. So Mando throws the Raiders Toro's binoculars as payment to cross their land, and they move on, which really emphasizes that he should have tried something like this with the Jawas, but, whatever. So Mando and Toro come upon a dewback, with a rider hanging off the side being dragged on the ground. They wonder if it's the target they were looking for, and it turns out to be another bounty hunter that had died. But after that, a blaster shot goes off, and it turns out to be a trap. And no joke, Mando gets shot by this high-power rifle, not once, but twice, both of which hit him directly on the armor and also don't affect him in any way. Even if this makes sense, it's just so boring. We never have to fear for Mando because his armor is always going to take care of him. So Mando says they need to wait until nightfall in order to get an advantage on her, and they keep talking about where she is. And these dum-dums just keep sticking their head out over the ridge. This highly trained sniper has a sniper with a thermal scope and was landing shots on Mando while he was running up to the top of the ridge. So I have no idea why she's not just headshotting these two simpletons while they poke their heads out above the ridge for multiple seconds at a time. So now their new plan is, once it's dark, they're going to ride out in the desert on their speeders while firing off flares in order to keep her blind. This makes enough sense for me. So now that it's dark, they begin to enact their plan, and it's going fairly well, until Toro messes up one of his flares and it doesn't go off. So she shoots Mando's speeder, which stops it, and he flies off. He's of course unharmed by this, but what he does next is pretty fucking dumb. After he's been knocked to the ground, he stands up and just looks at her. Like he's standing out in the desert, just waiting to get shot. And after being given this entirely free shot, this highly trained sharpshooter shoots him right in the chest plate, right on the armor she's shot before that she knows is relatively unaffected by her blaster. He's seriously just sitting there. Why not look for a weak spot in the armor, or at least go for a headshot? I mean, there seems to be some kind of concussive force with the blast, so a headshot would definitely do more damage if it doesn't outright kill him. But this all just feels so artificial. Like, it really makes me feel like we're watching a story where Mando knows he's the main character and can't be killed, because he takes such little care with his own life. I mean, he does take some care. He thought far enough ahead to make this plan, but then he just gives himself up for a free shot from this chick. But luckily for us, Toro snagged some teleportation ability from Mando while he was sleeping, so he just materializes behind the assassin. But she's got a hidden throwing knife in her gun, so she throws it at him and hits his gun away and runs up to start beating him him up. She must have forgotten she's holding a blaster rifle, because in the time it takes her to stand up, run to him, and start fighting him, she could have just as easily turned around and shot him. This would have killed him immediately, but whatever. We need more fight scenes, so let's do this instead. She now totally dominates Toro in the fight and gets him into an armbar. And luckily, Toro didn't get all of Mando's teleportation ability, so he gets there just in time to save him. Now that they have the assassin in custody, she comments on how Mando is a Mandalorian, and she asks if he's ever been to Navarro, because something went down there that apparently wasn't good for them. We don't know what happened yet, but this is alluding to something we'll discuss later. But now they take her down to the bottom of the cliff, and they realize that they don't have enough room on the speeder bike for all three of them, so they're gonna have to go get the dewback from earlier. Didn't they see that dewback like hours ago? I mean, it was daytime, so that thing is more than likely miles away from where they last saw it, but, who cares, I guess. But they argue over who's going to go get it, since they don't trust each other. Mando decides he'll be the one to go, and I'm just wondering, why don't they just go get it together? Is there any reason for this? I don't know, maybe it's setting something up. While Mando is gone, Toro and the assassin have a conversation about how much more the Mandalorian is worth compared to her, and that Toro should take him instead. Even though he says he doesn't care about the money, she tells him to think about what it'll do for his rep. This discussion then leads to them making a deal to bring in Mando and let the assassin go. I guess this plan makes some sense. They could probably actually bring him in if they work together, but it's a little strange because his main motivation is to get into the guild, and this job is already done. But then, Toro decides to just shoot her? What are you doing, man? Why is your plan to take on Mando by yourself? Because with what we've seen of you so far, you have no chance in taking him on, and you should probably know this. So Mando gets back to find the assassin's dead body, and he decides to just leave her there. Is her dead body really that worthless? I get that bounties can be required to be alive, but she's a wanted assassin, so bringing her in dead has to be worth something, right? Just sling her on the back of your dewback, mate. Now he's made it back to the hangar and Toro is waiting for him. He's got baby Yoda in one hand and is keeping the mechanic hostage with the other. He tells him to put the blaster down and put his hands up. And we get a shot of Mando holding the flare thing behind his head. So a second later, he pops the flare, blinding Toro, and walks around to the side and shoots him. Wow, what an epic standoff. I mean, it makes sense. This kid stood no chance against Mando. But does he also have to be so dumb to make this happen? Why does it feel like it's so much to ask for our characters to have plans that don't make them look like total morons? Maybe this is just being nitpicky, but I know I'm not the only person that's affected by this stuff. I like intelligent characters, I'm sorry. So now that Toro is dead, Mando takes the money that he had on him and gives all of it to the mechanic. And I guess this covers it? But this makes me wonder, where is Mando getting the money to keep his expeditions going? I mean, all the Beskar he got paid with was smelted down for his armor, so it's not like he really got paid, if you know what I mean. And he even says at the start of the episode that he doesn't have enough money to cover the mechanic. So the show is the one bringing up money as an issue, not me. Now Mando takes off in his ship and it cuts to a scene of some boots walking up to find the dead body of the assassin. I've seen people say this is going to be Boba Fett because I guess in the EU he survived the Sarlacc pit in Return of the Jedi. I have no problem with this, but this isn't confirmed in this season and it's not brought up again, so I won't either. But after that, the show cuts to black and that ends episode 5. Well, this was a quick one. Seemed like there was just very little actually happening in this episode. I find it hard to enjoy these episodes even on my first viewing, because I was excited to see what was going to happen with the Imperials, the Guild, and Baby Yoda, but now it feels like the story is just ground entirely to a halt, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing. I think I would actually enjoy it if we were seeing any kind of development at all, but it just feels like nothing is really going on in these episodes, story or character-wise. But oh well. That ends episode 5, so let's move on to episode 6. Episode 6 begins with Mando landing in a hangar out in space, and Mando meets up with a man named Ran, who he had apparently contacted prior to his arrival. Rand says he was surprised that Mando contacted him because he heard things hadn't worked out with the guild, but his policy is to ask no questions. He tells Mando that he's always welcome here, but it's kind of funny because fucking 3 lines later, he says that his ship is the only reason he let him come back. This might be a record-breaking contradiction. There is exactly 27 seconds of screen time between these 2 lines. I'm not gonna lie, that's just impressive. But yeah, the job Rand is offering to Mando is to break out one of their associates from a prisoner transport ship, and they need Mando's ship to do it, because his ship isn't tagged by the Republic or something. Now we meet another character, Mei Feld, who is seriously praised just for being played by Bill Burr. Which, don't get me wrong, I love Bill Burr, but it's not like he gives some insanely amazing performance. He's not a bad actor, but I wouldn't say he's incredible either. So Rand tells him about how he and Mando used to run together as kids, and that being with the Mandalorian gained him a lot of reputation. I always enjoy getting more backstory on our characters, and I like it even more when it's placed naturally. Rand then says Mei Feld is going to be the leader for this job, so so Mando has to listen to him. Mei Feld tells Mando that his ship looks like a Canto Bight slot machine, and oh god. If we're gonna reference something from The Last Jedi, why does it have to be Canto Bight? Ugh, sorry, there's my bias showing. Obviously, this is no real point against the show, I just hate seeing this garbage referenced as a real part of the universe. Now we start meeting the other members of the team. First we meet Hellboy's brother, Cringe Boy, also known as Berg. This character drives me nuts in this episode, but I'll get to it when we make it there. Next we meet the droid named Zero, and immediately Mando says he thought they had 4. And this is where we meet the last member of the team, Zeon, a Twi'lek, who acts like she posts on Twitter from her job at Hot Topic about how she's different from other girls. But it turns out that Mando already knows this person, and she asks why she shouldn't cut him down right now. They have a couple lines that allude to a relationship between her and Mando, and this makes me wonder if Mando has to leave his helmet on while he has sex, because the image in my mind from that is just fucking hilarious. Now it cuts to the droid in the cockpit of Mando's ship, and while he's checking everything out, a hologram of Grief pops up. It's a little broken up, so all we hear is that Grief has received wonderful news, and then we hear upon delivery of the Corey, and it cuts out. Now they discuss their plan to get onto the Republic transport, and so far I have no problems with it. Other than they say it's a maximum security transport, but it has no escort with it? It's strange, but not a huge issue. They say that Zero is going to be the one flying the ship, and Mando puts up barely any resistance. His droidism goes far enough that he won't let mechanic droids help fix his ship, so when he's told that a droid is going to fly it, he should be far more adamantly against this, but he's just not. Now they're flying to their destination. Zeon tells Berg to sit down, so he growls at her and she hisses back. Oh, this is just so cringe, man. Mando is watching Zero as he enters the ship into hyperspace, and I like this. If there's nothing he could do about it, he would at least want to keep an eye on him. But then Zero says he can handle it, so Mando just leaves? Wouldn't it be way more in line with his character if he declined and decided to watch him the whole way there? But after this, we see Berg press the buttons on the wall, and since Mando obviously hasn't learned his lesson, his gun case is still unlocked. This is so strange. Why does this guy not lock anything when it's constantly causing problems for him? Mando climbs down and closes the cabinet on him, and Berg slams on the doors. And the captions give us a pretty much full summarization of his character. They just say he grunts in frustration. And that's pretty much all this character does. He does nothing except be angry the whole episode. What an exciting character. But Bill Burr says that Mandalorians are supposedly the greatest warriors in the galaxy, and he asks Zeon if this is true. And I'll say that what we've seen of Mando so far, I definitely wouldn't call them the best in the galaxy. They then have a discussion about seeing Mando without his helmet, which leads to a small scuffle that ends when Berg accidentally presses a button, revealing Baby Yoda. Mando. This is why locks exist, so people can't so easily find stuff that you don't want them to. Please start using them, I'm begging you. But after this, Mei Feld starts vaguely threatening Baby Yoda, and Mando doesn't say a word. I'd expect him to be really pissed about this, but he's so chill about it. It's just bizarre, I guess. Now they come out of hyperspace, and the droid pulls off the maneuver they talked about earlier. This throws everyone on the ship around like crazy. Even Baby Yoda takes a pretty nasty fall. You'd think some warning would be nice, but he didn't tell them anything. He didn't even light the seatbelt sign. But they're now hooked up onto the prison ship, and their plan is commencing. They all hop down onto the ship, and Mei Feld says they need to be quick, because once they're spotted by the droids, they'll be all over them. Zero then starts tracking their locations on the ship, presumably so he can tell them where to go. Now they start walking past the other prisoners, and we see a lot of aliens that we've seen in previous installments of Star Wars, which is always nice to see. But one of the aliens slams on his door to jump scare us, and Zeon just hisses at him. It's so minor and barely takes up any screen time, but I can't get over how awkward this shit is. She's just like the weird girl in high school who hisses at everyone because she's just so random, lol. So as they're wandering the halls, they spot a little mouse droid, and Berg decides to just shoot it, and because of this, some guard droids turn the corner and start blasting at them. And this is the first time in the show where I honestly don't feel like the CGI is nailed. Don't get me wrong, the droids still look exceptional, something just feels off about them, but maybe that's just me. However, we do get to see Mei Feld use his robotic extendo arm to shoot around corners, and I like this a lot. This is how you add cool and interesting tech to a pre-existing universe. It's tech that actually seems useful, but it's not overpowered to the point where you have to ask why no one else in the universe is using it. This is a nice change for sure. But after a few moments, Mei Feld calls out to Mando, and surprisingly he's missing. Mei Feld says he knew it, implying that he was suspicious Mando would cut and run when they got into trouble. But what Mei Feld didn't realize was that Mando actually has a teleportation ability, which allows him to just magically pop out behind the droids from the direction they had just come from. Wow, neat. This gives him perfectly clean shots at all of them. But instead of just shooting them from where he is, he decides to use a fucking knife to take them out. He even uses his blaster up close a couple of times, so I have no idea what he's thinking. Also, the fact that he gets shot so many times in this short fight really lends more credence to the fact that he's really not that great of a warrior. And he'd be dead many times over if it wasn't for this magical armor. Now that the fight is over, Zero tells them their presence has been detected, which, yeah, obviously. But Mei Feld asks him to open the door they're coming up on. The door opens, and on the inside is a Republic soldier. And Mando says there were only supposed to be droids on this ship. The soldier pulls out his blaster and tells them to back off, and then pulls out a rectangle. Mando says it's a tracking beacon that he can use to call in reinforcements from the Republic. Mei Feld says he didn't tell the team about the tracking beacon because he didn't think they would get to this point. But I don't know how he expected that. They were so not sneaky. They all just walked through the halls without a care in the world. And we can see in the room they're standing in right now, camera monitors all around them. Seriously. There are like 10 screens in this room monitoring the halls right now. And I'm just wondering how this guy hadn't already used this life-saving beacon. Like, how does he just now figure out they're here? It's ridiculous. But now Mando puts his blaster away to talk down everyone in the room and get the soldier to put the tracker down. So as he's talking to him, Mei Feld says he's not going to let him get away with it. So Mando pulls his blaster on him and says, "You know what kind of hell they're going to bring down on us?" And Mei Feld says, "You think I care about that?" Well, I mean, doesn't he? They make it seem like him pressing that button means the mission has failed and they're all going to die, so why on earth would he not care about that? But then Mando says they're not killing anybody, which I get that the show is trying to tell us that Mando doesn't want to kill innocent people, but he didn't have this character trait when it came to the Jawas. Maybe he sees them as less than people. Mando, you racist dick. When the standoff reaches its peak of tension, Zeon just throws a knife at the soldier, which hits him in like the hip area? I don't know. But it kills him instantly. I don't know why a bounty hunter or criminal or whatever she is would use throwing knives, since they're so much more limited in terms of accuracy, range, and ammunition when compared to a blaster. But whatever. At least the assassin in the last episode used a throwing knife as backup. Moving on though, the soldier has somehow initiated the tracker as he was dying. So Zero calls them and tells them they have 20 minutes to get the job done. So now they're running through the halls, and we see a guard droid that Berg just smashes and then chucks into another droid. And we get this big fiery explosion. So I guess these droids are gas powered? They open the door to the cell, and the man inside is the cringy brother of the Hot Topic girl, so that's nice. But he says, "Mando, the man who left me behind is now my savior." And then Berg punches Mando into the cell and they lock the door on him. So they all betray him and they run off. We cut to the droid in the cockpit who is getting the old transmission to work, and when he does, he finds out that Baby Yoda is a high value bounty that he can steal. But it cuts back to Mando in his cell, and while he's in there we see one of the guard droids from earlier just strolling past. This thing doesn't seem to be on alert at all, even though there's an alert going throughout the whole ship that there are intruders. So why is it just walking around like he's on regular guard duty? So Mando grapples the droid and breaks off his arm through the little window and uses it to unlock the door from the inside? Why this maximum security prisoner transport has these little windows, I have no idea. But what makes even less sense is the fact that these cells have a way to be opened from the inside. Seriously, what is this? But Mando makes it out of his cell and makes his way back to the control room that had the soldier from earlier in it. And he uses the camera to find out where they all are. So when I pointed out the monitors earlier, that wasn't even a nitpick. Mando actually uses these cameras to spot where they are. So the fact that this soldier didn't immediately call for backup when they were sauntering through the halls earlier is just baffling. But now Zero calls Mei Feld and tells them that Mando has escaped. So they're going to have to take care of him because Mando is now able to shut doors and turn the lights from a nice white to a spooky red. But as they're running, a door shuts down between the group, splitting them in two. And if the show is telling us that Mando did this on purpose, then I actually really like this. Mando is finally making a plan that makes sense. He's splitting them up so he has an easier time taking them out. He also jams Zero's tracker and comms, which is smart too. But you really gotta hurry up, man. You're running out of time. But after they get split up, Zeon's brother tells her and Cringe Boy to go find and kill Mando. He then turns to Mei Feld and tells him to get him off the ship. So he's betraying his sister, doing the same thing he betrayed Mando for. But after that, they all split up to find Mando, which doesn't make any sense compared to just finding him in the pairs they were already split into. But we gotta get the scenes of Mando taking them down one at a time. We get some scenes of Zero looking for Baby Yoda on the ship, and then it cuts back to Berg, who's made it back to the control room to find Mando, and it turns out Mando was above him. and instead of just shooting him in the head, he snags him with his grappling hook and tries to hang him, but this guy is obviously way stronger than him, so he just pulls him down. We get a fight scene and Mando blasts this guy in the face with his flamethrower, which does nothing because he's clearly Satan, but it also doesn't catch his clothes on fire? Yeah, whatever. The fight scene ends when Mando gets Berg into the doorway and chucks something at the door panel, closing the door on him, so he's definitely dead. The last time we saw a door close on somebody, it cut him in half, but nah. This dude is like super strong, so he's just lifting the door back up. But Mando presses a button that closes the secondary door, and that smashes him horizontally. So now he's dead for sure. Zeon even makes it to the hallway just as the door closes, and she doesn't go to help him, so he's definitely dead. We get some more of Zero poking around the ship looking for Baby Yoda, which is tension-filled for sure, but I don't understand why he's being so cautious. As far as he knows, this thing is just a baby, and it has nowhere to go, so why is he not just tearing this ship apart? So now we get a shot of Zeon walking down a hallway, and Mando pops out behind her, blaster in hand, just sauntering toward her. Just shoot her, man. Like, damn, why do you have to do this? So after like a good 3 seconds, Zeon turns around and knocks the blaster out of his hand with a knife, and she actually lands one in his shoulder. But she runs up to him to stab him, and he sidesteps her and gets a knife to her throat. But before he kills her, it cuts away. I wonder what that means. Now we get a shot of Mei Feld walking down a hallway, and a door opens in front of them. And if this is Mando, I guess he's back in the control room, because I thought that's how he was shutting doors earlier. But we get some alien-style shots of a blinking light showing Mando walking up on Mei Feld. He then turns around and yells no as soon as he sees him, but it cuts away again, which is strange. But I assume he's killing these guys. I mean, he has no qualms with killing people that betray him, right? I mean, that's what they show in the last episode. Now it shows Zeon's brother getting to the ladder to get onto Mando's ship, but Mando got there just in time to stop him. Zeon's brother says you killed the others, and he replies that they got what they deserved, so they're definitely dead, I guess. Zeon's brother offers to make sure Mando gets his money if he doesn't kill him, but it cuts away before we see Mando make his decision, so we don't know what's gonna happen. Zero then finds Baby Yoda and goes to kill him, which is strange, because if he knows that this thing has a bounty on it and wants to collect it, he has no idea whether or not it's meant to be brought in dead or alive. And he's just a baby. It shouldn't be too hard to just tie him up or something. But whatever, he goes to kill him, and Baby Yoda sticks out his hand to try to use the Force. I have no problem with him attempting to do this. It saved Mando's life before, so if he's able to recognize that his life is in danger, then sure. But a shot goes off, and it turns out it was Zero that died. I'm so glad this happened to be a fake out, because if they had honestly tried to tell us that this little baby was able to deflect blaster bolts with the Force, I would have just dropped out right there. However, it turns out to be Mando who shot the droid. He then takes off and arrives back at the hangar, and he's got Zeon's brother with him. So I guess he accepted his deal. Ran asks Mando where the others are, and he just says no questions asked is the policy. So Mando gets his money and takes off. And as he's leaving, Rand tells Zeon's brother to kill him. And out from the floor pops another ship. But during this, we start to hear beeping, and it turns out that Mando had left the tracker from earlier on him. Though I have to ask, why did it just start beeping now? Doesn't it always beep? And if there's a way to turn off the noise, why did it have this dramatic timing when it turned back on? So now a few X-Wings show up to destroy the hangar, and they arrive right in front of Mando, and they just fly right past him? This is really weird. They wouldn't be interested in the man who's like 20 feet away from where their tracker was sending them. They literally could have just had Mando blast off right before they got there, but instead they just give us this awkward shot of the X-Wings flying right past him. And now they just fly in and start destroying this hangar. But it's really awkward when you remember that they know that the only people that are supposed to have these beacons are their soldiers. What if they had taken him hostage and didn't know about the tracker? They would have just killed an innocent man without asking any questions. But Mando blasts off into hyperspace and it cuts back to the prison ship. And for whatever fucking reason, all the people that betrayed him are still alive and locked in the same prison cell. Are you joking? So instead of just killing these people that betrayed him and left him for dead, he took the precious time he had to round all of them up and put them in the same cell? Oh my God, this is so stupid. Why? What reason would he have for sparing these people's lives? The stupidity of this show can really boggle the mind. But the guy that we watched get smashed by 2 doors didn't actually get smashed at all. He just lost the tips of his horns. But we saw Zeon on the other side of the door when they closed, so why would she have just left him there? At what point did Mando find the time to get him out of the door and into this cell? This is all just so fucking dumb. As much as I seriously dislike these characters, they better show up again later in the show, because if they made Mando this stupid for no reason, it would be pretty unforgivable. But now it shows the outside of the prison ship and it cuts to black. And that ends episode 6. I don't even know what to say. That episode really wasn't even that bad relative to the others, but that ending, my god. It really feels like the writers are trying to shove this new character trait into Mando, that he doesn't want to kill people, I guess. But there's no development for this. He hasn't really shown any restraint when it came to killing people, especially people that wronged him. But in this ending, we're told that he went way out of his way in order to not kill these people. It's ridiculous. Seriously. Okay, well I guess that brings us to the end of part 2. Again, if you made it this far, I seriously appreciate it. I'm sorry how delayed this video was, but hopefully it won't happen again with part 3. Also, I know these videos are long and maybe a bit intense, and I really try to cut down on a lot of things, but hopefully that just goes to show how utterly broken this show is. Because I promise that I'm not catching everything going wrong with it. And like before, I would really appreciate any criticism you may have of my video, as it will help me improve. But that's all I have for you today. I really hope to see you again next time.